At 0300 hours local time on October 23, 2025, mere hours after the United States imposed sweeping sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two largest oil companies collectively valued in the trillions and pivotal to Moscow's war economy. The Orenburg and Tuapse refineries operated under a veil of routine vigilance, their vast networks of pipes, distillation columns, and storage tanks humming with activity as workers monitored pressure gauges, flow rates at thousands of barrels per hour, and export pipelines feeding global markets despite ongoing international restrictions. Security personnel patrolled the fence perimeters with dogs and thermal cameras, while Panzer S-1 anti-aircraft systems continuously swept the skies for threats, their radars tuned to detect intrusions above 50 meters altitude, supported by electronic warfare arrays ready to jam any unauthorized signals. Located over 1,800 kilometers from the Ukrainian front lines, these facilities felt unassailable, their massive infrastructure representing the backbone of Russia's energy exports, circumventing Western sanctions through shadowy trades with countries like China and India, and generating billions in revenue to fund the ongoing invasion. For years, Rosneft and Lukoil had symbolized Russian resilience, producing millions of barrels daily and maintaining operations even as global pressure mounted. But more than 1,800 kilometers away in Ukrainian operational hubs, a precisely timed reprisal was launching. Intelligence from the Security Service of Ukraine and Main Intelligence Directorate had been compiling dossiers on these oil giants for months, leveraging Allied satellite imagery, defector testimonies, and open-source data from X to identify vulnerabilities in their defensive setups. This strike was no spontaneous act. It was a calculated response to the U.S. sanctions announced on October 22, 2025, which blacklisted Rosneft and Lukoil for Russia's refusal to commit to peace talks, marking the first Ukraine-related sanctions of Donald Trump's second term and aiming to cripple Moscow's oil revenues. Ukraine, having endured Russian barges on its own energy infrastructure that halted 60% of gas production, waited for this diplomatic blow, then unleashed a drone swarm hitting the refineries, igniting fires that suspended operations and disrupted Kazakh gas flows. The economic ramifications were immediate. Billions in lost production, export halts, and a symbolic retaliation amplifying the energy war's intensity. In this video, we're dissecting this post-sanctions deep strike, from the strategic waiting game and high-tech launch, through the perilous evasion over vast enemy territory, to the fiery impacts and cascading global fallout. If the interplay of diplomacy, sanctions, and asymmetric warfare fascinates you, hit that like button, subscribe for more detailed analyses, and let's unpack this October 23rd drama step by step. To fully understand the timing and impact of this strike, we must place it within the context of the escalating energy war between Ukraine and Russia in 2025, where both sides have increasingly targeted each other's oil and gas infrastructure to undermine economic and military sustainability. The catalyst was the U.S. sanctions imposed on October 22, 2025, blacklisting Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two biggest oil producers, for Moscow's lack of serious commitment to peace talks, as stated by the U.S. Treasury, marking the first Ukraine-related sanctions under Donald Trump's second administration. These measures aim to cut off Russia's oil revenues, which fund the war, by restricting global trades and financial transactions for these companies that control nearly half of Russia's oil production. Russia denounced the sanctions as ineffective, but they came amid ongoing Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy, including the October 16th barrage that damaged gas facilities and halted 60% of Ukraine's production, forcing increased imports to 6.3 billion cubic meters for winter reserves. Ukraine, anticipating the diplomatic support from U.S. sanctions, waited strategically before launching its counterstrike on October 23rd, targeting refineries like Orenburg and Tuapse with drones, causing fires that suspended operations and disrupted Kazakh gas processing at Orenburg. The preparation involved sophisticated intelligence work. SBU and GUR teams analyzed real-time satellite data from partners like Maxar, cross-referenced with defector information and OSINT from ex-users posting about Russian oil movements, identifying gaps in defenses, such as radar coverage and jammer placements at these remote sites. The weapons were long-range drones, possibly Lyutyi or Beaver models, equipped with 150 kilograms shaped charge warheads for penetrating storage tanks and compressor units, designed to maximize disruption without unnecessary casualties. Each drone, assembled from affordable commercial parts and smuggled components, cost under $10,000, a stark contrast to the trillions in value of the targeted oil giants. The launch occurred at 0300 from concealed positions in eastern Ukraine. Oil Giants Protocol Initiative commanded leaders over encrypted lines. Electropropulsion systems whirred to life, lifting the swarm at 15-degree inclines to conserve battery for the 1,800-kilometer journey. Operators in blast-proof bunkers monitored via fiber optic links, immune to jamming, with algorithms calculating wind shear, air density in the cold October night, and thermal gliding to extend range. Russia's recent barges on Ukrainian energy had depleted their air defense stocks, creating an ideal opening for this retaliatory deep penetration. The formation was tactical: decoys to overwhelm radars, primaries to strike key infrastructure like tanks and pipelines. This strike carried significant risks. Targeting oil giants post-sanctions could provoke further Russian retaliation, but Ukraine's aim was economic, disrupting exports that fund war, forcing Russia to reroute resources and highlighting the effectiveness of U.S. diplomatic pressure combined with Ukrainian military action. The event also drew international attention, with the U.S. Treasury noting the sanctions' intent to push for peace, while Russia vowed countermeasures against what they called terrorist acts. The operation blended geopolitics and technology, with drones serving as tools to amplify the impact of sanctions, blurring lines in modern hybrid warfare. 1 hour after takeoff, the Vanguard neared the densely defended Russian border, sustaining a low 10-meter altitude to capitalize on Earth's curvature for radar avoidance. A typical podlet, K-1 system detecting 200 kilometers at elevated levels turns oblivious below 12 kilometers line of sight, converting the flat plane into a natural invisibility mantle. But Russian safeguards were vigilant. Irregularity detections initiated alarms in surveillance hubs, resulting in MiG-31 intercept from remote airfields. These aircraft, racing at Mach 2.8 with our 33 missiles, consumed fuel extravagantly, restricting patrols to 1,500 kilometers round trips. The refinery's remoteness strained functional boundaries. The advancing operator, pulse racing in the bunker, performed a sharp maneuver to avoid undetected power lines, the craft's compass unstable from electromagnetic pulses. Inertial navigation smoothly took over. Gyroscopes and accelerometers supplied dead reckoning, enhanced by optical sensors fixing on landmarks like rivers or roadways. Decoy crafts bore the assault, cost-effective quadcopters fragmenting under ZU, 23 millimeters fire from border stations, tracers etching the darkness in chaotic, deadly patterns. Projections anticipated 20% attrition from such anti-aircraft, but the swarm's magnitude ensured primaries advanced. Advancing at 0400 into Orenburg airspace, electronic warfare heightened. Repellent. One station's inundated frequencies with 400 watts of noise, distorting feeds to 480p glitches. Engage autonomous, ordered the team. Integrated countermeasures excelled. Frequency hopping jumped 128 channels per second in proprietary patterns, ensuring sporadic interruptions but no complete blackout. Annoying, yet endurable. A Panzer battery-secured lock, releasing staggered missiles. Stratified altitudes for overlapping kill areas. Warheads with 200 tungsten spheres expanding at 1,800 meters per second for 10M lethal clouds. Fuses emitted radio pings for metal. Operator exploited the 1.2-second arming delay. At 432 kilometers per hour, covering 144 meters to dive beneath, safeties preventing detonation. Leveling at 5 meters, the unit undercut gun depressions of -5 degrees. twin 30mm cannons cycled 5,000 rounds, /min in boxing zones, but 3.5-second delays versus 2-second pivots rendered targeting obsolete. Desperate spirals expended ammo futilely. Checkpoints intensified. Soldiers, tipped via telegram chains, swarmed with AK-74s, firing at auditory cues. At 10 m, units threaded safety corridors, though 20% decoys succumbed to barrages. A Buk M3 ambush emerged. Decoys overloaded scopes. Random jinx confounded Kalman predictions. Math for cruise missiles failed against agile intruders. Experts warned of accidental leaks from repeated probes. Experts in think tanks like ISW noted this as part of Ukraine's strategy to mirror Russian energy attacks, forcing economic strain. The journey's success showcased Ukraine's advancing drone tech, capable of long-range precision despite Russian countermeasures, setting the stage for the fiery confrontation at the refineries. At 500 meters out, the operators switched to full manual control, their screens filled with the towering silhouettes of the storage tanks, wind-whipping vapor plumes in the early morning light. The initial drone collided with a primary tank, its 150 kilograms shaped charge warhead detonating through the Monroe effect, instantaneously compressing a copper cone under explosive pressure into a hypersonic 7,000 meters per second plasma jet that sliced through the steel exterior like tissue paper, spraying molten fragments across adjacent pipes and igniting high-pressure oil sprays into arc fires. The refinery's operations ground to a halt as internals shredded, with chain reactions spreading to nearby compressors. Subsequent drones targeted processing units. Jets breached high-pressure lines, sparking additional blazes. Safety valves failed, triggering a catastrophic cascade among billions in stored reserves. Cars and equipment derailed in the ensuing chaos. Fireballs soaring 100 meters and illuminating the Siberian night like an artificial sun. Shockwaves reverberated 10 kilometers, shattering nearby windows. Smoke plumes rose, visible on X-posts from locals. Massive explosion at Orenburg refinery. Fires out of control, Kazakh gas flow stopped. Crew escaped with minor injuries, but the facilities were engulfed, halting exports and disrupting Kazakh processing at Orenburg. Russian officials minimized. Technical fire quickly contained. Yet satellite evidence and leaks confirmed Ukrainian drone success. Refineries crippled, lines severed. By 0400 on October 23rd, the aftermath scale became evident. Fires continued to burn at Orenburg and Tuapse refineries, with operations fully suspended, leading to an immediate halt in Kazakh gas processing at Orenburg and disrupting billions in daily exports. Russian engineers and firefighters mobilized in force, using specialized equipment to extinguish the blazes, but the damage to tanks and compressors was extensive, with preliminary estimates suggesting weeks to months for repairs amid sanctions limiting access to western parts. Emergency protocols were activated. Evacuations of non-essential personnel, environmental monitoring for oil spills, and notifications to international partners like Kazakhstan, whose gas flows were directly impacted. The U.S. Treasury welcomed the strikes as complementing their sanctions, noting the combined pressure on Russia's war funding, while Russia condemned the attacks as acts of terrorism and vowed to enhance defenses. Security was ramped up immediately. Additional Panzer and S-400 batteries deployed, perimeter fences reinforced with AI cameras, and drone jamming fields expanded to cover larger radii around all major oil sites. Ukrainian officials offered no direct comment, but the strike aligned with their broader energy retaliation strategy, following Russian barges that had crippled 60% of Ukraine's gas production. The response highlighted Russia's vulnerability. Quick containment minimized environmental disaster, but the event exposed gaps in deep defense layers, prompting internal reviews and potential reallocations of air assets from the front lines. Globally, the IAEA expressed concern over risks to energy infrastructure near borders, calling for demilitarized zones to prevent escalations, echoing ongoing issues at nuclear and oil sites in the conflict. This incident, while contained, fueled diplomatic tensions, with Western allies supporting the sanctions' intent and Russia accusing Ukraine of economic sabotage, further complicating peace negotiations. The long-term fallout from this post-sanctioned strike extended beyond the immediate sites. While fires were eventually controlled at Orenburg and Tuapse, the suspension of operations led to a significant drop in Russian oil exports, exacerbating global energy prices and forcing buyers like China to seek alternatives, amplifying the U.S. sanctions effect. Russia ramped up protections at all major oil facilities, diverting military resources and straining budgets amid existing sanctions that limit spare parts for aging infrastructure. Ukraine's strategy succeeded in economic terms, demonstrating that U.S. diplomatic actions could be leveraged for military gains, weakening Russia's frontline efforts by disrupting fuel supplies. The IAEA and UN called for urgent de-escalation around energy sites, proposing safety buffers to avert disasters, resonating with persistent issues at Zaporizhzhia NPP under Russian control. Experts warned of potential supply chain collapses if such strikes continue, with Europe accelerating diversification from Russian gas. The incident underscored asymmetric warfare's evolution, low-cost drones threatening trillion-dollar oil empires, raising stakes for international intervention and peace talks. To recap this game-changing strike, Ukraine waited for U.S. sanctions on Rosneft, then launched deep drone hits that ignited fires and halted operations, dealing a billion-dollar blow to Russia's oil giants. A masterstroke in the energy war with far-reaching implications. Drop your thoughts in the comments on whether this accelerates peace or escalation. Subscribe for more war analyses, like if you found this insightful, and share to spread the intel. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.